Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome, 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 welcome. And I'm saying welcome a lot of times so that the people that are straggling have time to come in. We have a panel tonight full of wonderful people intersecting identity and microaggressions toward the bi community, which is brought to us by the city of West Hollywood. And we have our mayor, Lauren Meister, here to welcome us to this panel as well. And if you would like to say a few words, Mayor.
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I know you already said welcome, 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 but I will say on behalf of the West Hollywood City Council, welcome to this discussion on intersectionality and microaggressions toward the bi community. And we appreciate your being here. And I'm sure this panel is going to be fantastic. And thank you all for being here. And thank you, Gio, for moderating this fantastic panel.
You are so welcome. And we have some amazing people tonight. We had amazing people last night, but I would like to introduce them. Ryan Russell is a professional football player in the NFL, a published poet, writer, and artist. Currently an NFL free agent, Ryan was drafted in 2015 to the Dallas Cowboys in the 5th round. He saw a large part of success in Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. April 26th, his mother's birthday, he released his debut poetry book, Prison or Passion. In an exclusive interview with ESPN, Russell came out as bisexual on August 29, 2019, and is currently the only male athlete in the 4 major American professional sports leagues, NFL, NBA, MLB, and MLS, to openly identify as LGBTQ. So thank you so much for being here. Next, I would like to introduce Kai Hazelwood, who is a transdisciplinary artist, educator, event producer, and public speaker, raising the profile of bi and queer BIPOC community issues through art projects, community events, and public speaking. She has appeared in BuzzFeed videos and speaks at community events, high schools, and colleges about bi positivity and BIPOC community issues. In 2016, she choreographed the bi contingent of the Los Angeles Pride Parade, featuring the cast of The Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I also would like to introduce Nikki Andres, who is a non-binary, trans, feminine, queer actor and comic. Nikki has enjoyed a wide variety of roles in TV, film, and theater, recurring on One Day at a Time on Netflix, with notable guest stars on The Dropout on Hulu and NCIS Los Angeles, CBS, and other recent credits include Lucifer and On the Verge. Nikki also provides the English language voice for the Spanish trans icon Cristina Ortiz Rodriguez in hopefully I don't say this wrong, Veneno, the limited series about her life on HBO Max. And is Rachel here? Yeah, Rachel's here. Okay. Rachel Moore, who is the coordinator of the Belgian Pride and co-founder of the Rainbow Nation Brussels, an organization that creates community building activities for QTB POC. Rainbow Nation Brussels strives to create a visibility of these communities that is not defined by whiteness. Also would like to introduce David Ticken and Stephanie Cifuentes from Ambi LA, who they do amazing work in our community. So thank you so much for being here. And last but not least, I would love to introduce Jackie Steele, co-chair of the Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board, first bisexual appointed to the City of West Hollywood's Lesbian and Gay Advisory Board, board member and accomplice at Unique Women's Coalition, SoCal's first Black trans women-led org, comedian, host, and producer of shows at the Comedy Store and the Hollywood Improv, co-host and producer of Triggered with Brillie Francesca. And so this is your panel as well, Jackie.
Yes, amazing. First of all, so wonderful to see all of you here. We're super excited to have each and every one of you, all of your different amazing magic and perspective, including our guests from Ambi, who helped put all this together. It takes a village. It took a village. We're here, and it's been a long couple of months with a lot of great participation from the city of West Hollywood and folks behind the scenes to make it happen. So thank you, everyone, for helping to make it happen. And before we kick in, I do want to just talk a little bit about our host with the most, because she's amazing. She did a panel for us last night and just rocked it. I got so much wonderful feedback and was really stoked too. And I said, oh, please come back and just do this with me tonight. So Giovanni Espiritu is an actress and filmmaker. She can currently be seen as a lead in the Amazon series Dyke Central, which was featured in After Ellen, BuzzFeed, Bust Magazine, Curve Magazine as a top LGBT series to watch, and her short film, Ultra Feminist, was awarded honorable mention at Outfest. Her second short film, Ally 3000, won Best Screenplay at the Culture and Diversity Film Festival, Los Angeles, and the Cyrus International Film Festival in Toronto, as well as several awards in categories of social justice and women filmmakers. So give it up for Gio, everybody.
Thank you so much. And I will get this party started by asking if, how do you identify outside of your sexual orientation? And do your identities intersect with your bisexuality? What are some joys and challenges that come from these intersections? And we will just do a popcorn style stuff. And if any of you are on TikTok, I'll be like I'll go first. I identify as bi, and I think I'm a bi demisexual, which is you have to have a emotional connection first before you feel the sexual attraction. And I also identify as weird. I don't know, that's a thing. Other identities, I'm a mom, and I am an ex-cult survivor and DV survivor, but I'm trying to not make that part of my identity because I'm so much more than that. And I would like to kick it off to, let's go with Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I identify as bold, Black, and bisexual. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm just really happy to be here today. I'm glad that we can make this work. I'm glad to be here with such a lovely panel, and I'm excited to talk about identity intersections because I have a lot of them. Also, personalities. I have a lot of those as well, but hopefully it's just me here today.
Do you want to choose the next person?
Okay, let's do Stephanie.
Stephanie, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I identify as a bi geek because I like comics and I like superheroes. I'm also Latinx, and I think I am a social warrior. I'm very active in our community, and I also work for social services. I can't think of anything else to say.
That's cool. If you want to kick it off to the next person, I kind of like the people choosing other people.
Okay, popcorn. Okay, let's see. Who else is on here? Nikki, it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Nikki Andres. I identify as non-binary, trans, and queer, and Asian American. And as an artist, for me, artist with a capital A is part of my identity, for sure. Throwing it, David.
Hey, everybody. I'm David. I proudly identify as bi. I love what Stephanie said. I'm also a bit of a geek. And I would like to identify myself as a community builder because that's always been a passion of mine, not just in the bi community, but in some other communities as well. And I'm really happy we're doing this, and I'm really happy to be here in such a esteemed company.
Do you want to kick it off to Kai or Rachel?
I will kick it off to Kai.
That feels oddly appropriate because David was one of the first people to welcome me into the bi community when I joined Ambi, so thanks. I identify as bi, but also queer, though both of those terms feel appropriate and delicious to me, and so I use them somewhat interchangeably. I identify as super loudly, unapologetically Black. I identify as a giant nerd, but specifically a Star Trek nerd, and all Star Treks, to the point that I still watch Star Trek every night to fall asleep. No lie. So giant nerd. And I'm also just happy to be here with all these beautiful, amazing people. That was awesome listening to the bios. It's love it. Look at everybody. Who's left? I'm going to pass it to Rachel.
Well, I guess I am the person left over, and I think I'm more of a mix of everybody else. So I would define myself as Black and bold, and unapologetically Black, of course. I'm also tired. It's 4 o'clock in the morning where I'm at right now. So yeah, and I also am an avid Trekkie. I love Star Trek. Yes, I got to meet the original and one and only Uhura, so I'm super happy with that. I'm also happy to be here. I just happen to be the European representative on the BI committee of ILGA Europe. So that's also something else. And I am an avid community leader and community member. So that's me, all in one.
And Jackie, how about you?
Yes,
Can't forget about you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for being here. I know I can't believe it's 4 a.m. and I'm like, oh, it's 7. Like, calm down. It's 4 a.m. where you are. So thank you for being here. Also, I'm loving this Star Trek, and I feel like we're building a whole other like conversation or panel or I don't know, Facebook group, whatever the kids are doing. So loving all of that. Just identity wise, I don't want to take up too much space, but I think the biggest intersectional stuff that I just deal with is just being a bi woman and what that looks like and what that kind of those challenges are walking through the world, right? And so like it ain't that big day to day, it ain't that dramatic. I'm not swooning, but like that's where I get the challenges. Meeting the world as a bi woman and receiving how that's received by particularly straight men.
I kind of always like to start with the challenges so that we can end with the joys in the conversation. So how do your identities intersect with your bisexuality? How do you move through the world? And like, what are the challenges that you've, encountered at those intersections? If anybody wants to go, or have any stories that already come to mind about that. Kai.
I mean, you're like speaking my bread and butter here. I can't help myself. I think the biggest challenges for me, and I've spoken to this before, but this is the perfect time for that, is the sense that I have to choose between being Black and being bi or queer, depending on the space that I'm in. And the tension between wanting to be able to fully embody both of those critical parts of who I am at the same time, and recognizing that part of that is my own inner work, but a lot of that is also the way that we build community to allow for intersecting identities to all be fully and joyfully embraced and celebrated when we're together.
What about Ryan? Can we toss to Ryan?
I love that, actually. I was gonna say something similar to that about kind of the two, I guess, largest identities that live in my life. But I will say another thing, just being a man in a very masculine, sometimes toxic masculine sport and profession, that a lot of the challenges for me sometimes are, one, this is very interesting because straight men want me to be gay so bad, and I don't get it. I don't understand the fascination. I just don't understand it. So there's kind of like this wall where you aren't able to communicate and you aren't able to learn and be heard and teach because people already kind of have this preconceived notion that bisexuality doesn't exist, the bi erasure, especially in just male sports and the male sphere in general. And within the Black community, there is, for me, in my experience, specifically with my family, in being bisexual and being able to be in a relationship with a woman, there was kind of this stigma of like, well, then why would you come out? Like, why wouldn't you just choose to then be with a woman? And I mean, I'm pretty sure, as we all know, you can't just choose who you fall in love with. I would have probably avoided a lot of horrible relationships if I could have just chose to not fall for them. But so for right now, those are kind of the two things that are speaking loudest to me in these identities.
Thank you. I don't know, that kind of just made me think a little bit about, like, for me, I have been in a relationship with a guy for a very, very long time, and I always think that I'm not queer enough, which is, it's something that I do struggle with, because I'm like, okay, are those the relationships that I had before him, are they invalidated? Is because we didn't go past this limit of, interaction, does that mean that it wasn't gay enough for myself? So I have those where I ask myself that, and I still have to constantly be like, no, I belong in this community, so that's where it shows it for me a lot, especially like being like an ex-Christian and ex-fundy, like getting rid of like that abomination stuff, in my head all the time. Yeah. Whew. Anybody else want to take it?
I'll go.
Yes, please pop in.
I totally know what you mean right now when you say that whole, that just like, okay, if I'm dating someone who identifies as male right now, does that mean like my previous relationships with women do not exist or don't count? Because I've been told by other people that they don't count because I am now with a man. Like whatever happened in the past, I've been told, why do you still identify as bi? You're dating a guy. And then in terms of like how myself and how I identify as bi and how just everything kind of intersects, because I'm a Latina female, Latin females are so like hypersexualized in media, like constantly. Like if you're looking at like, if anyone watched Glee, like Brittany and Santana, both bi characters on the show, were both very, very, very overtly sexual. And Santana is of course a Latinx woman and overtly very, very sexual. And they were also made it to be promiscuous. So that's an assumption a lot of people make about Latin women. And unfortunately, it's a very stereotypical assumption that is made across the board about bi people in general. Because I've heard it a lot when trying to date, people asking, oh, okay, so if you're bi, does that mean that you're going to be dating other people? Like you can't be monogamous. So did anyone else want to chime in?
I guess I can. Oh, sorry. Did I undercut someone?
Yes,
there?
Rachel.
No, you go for it. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like I totally understand the entire idea of having to choose which parts of your identity you can actually let forward. But I make it my like daily prerogative to not have to choose, to put myself in the position of I am bisexual, but I am also Black. Deal with it yourself. That is your issue to deal with. Sometimes it's not easy doing that, but I'm never going to be just one or the other. I'm constantly being Black and I'm constantly bisexual. My bisexuality is part of my Blackness, and my Blackness is also part of my bisexuality. The fact that I am also polyamorous, I'm sometimes a sex worker. Sometimes I can actually say that, sometimes I can't. That also depends on the situation and the context that I'm in. And also sometimes it adds to the ongoing myths of bisexuality and bisexual people. Just as Stephanie just said, some people, the bi-erasure and Russell, the other people prior, they also said that talking about the bi-erasure, that, bisexual people are not trustworthy. So sometimes I have to choose, do I actually say that I'm polyamorous? Do I actually say that I'm a sex worker? Because then that kind of adds to the ongoing myths that bisexual people are just untrustworthy and they're unable to choose, and that they're going to possibly not be monogamous. I'm in a monogamous relationship right now, but I am a polyamorous person. That is just part of my identity. So for me, I do question a lot of the personally, more often than not, I look at the context and I look at who I'm talking to. If I'm safe, if I feel safe enough, then I will say all of these things. If I'm not, then I'm most probably just going to put forward, I'm continuously bisexual, and I'm continuously having to come out to everybody that I see and that I meet, in order for them to remember that I am a part of the LGBTQI community, and I'm a legitimate part of this community, and I'm not going anywhere. So they're going to have to make space. So that is what it is.
I am burning to yes and that and double down. Because that is why I put all of that in my stand-up act, because I feel like if it's just out there and it's public, then I've elected to be in entertainment. So that's also, it's a choice, but not throwing shade at anyone who doesn't want to put all of their identifiers in a 5-minute set. But it's that kind of frustration. It's like ever since I was a kid, I'm adopted. I grew up with a bunch of white folks in a cornfield. It was always, what are you? What are you? And I realized every person of color gets that. Every everybody who maybe doesn't fit in a normative kind of way gets that. But the thing is, it's like, no matter how I answered, it was always like wrong. Everything was a bait and switch. So it's like, well, what do you mean by, like, in what ways do you want to bully me today? Right? Because there's like a buffet and I'm not sure which one to serve first. But also it's like, because I also identify as poly, and because I'm non-binary trans, like full disclosure, it's in my act, I'm a woman with a dick. And I'm proud of that. I think we need to talk about all the different genital configurations of both cis trans and trans people and all the people in between. It's a whole spectrum, including intersex people and intersex bodies. And so for me, it even just the language is problematic because it's so cis normative and heteronormative that even to define my own experience of the world, it's almost like I need to compromise the truth in order to choose a vocabulary word that other people can identify with, which is why I love the word queer, because I feel like more than anything, I'm queer. And not to, shade the specifics of vocabulary. I think it's important. I just also think it's a yes and situation in which LGBTQIA they're doing an amazing job. I think we also need some new ones.
I love the word queer because I still feel like I am trying to figure out who I am, just at all aspects of myself. So I feel like that encompasses it. Like it'd be so fluid and good. Before we get into the joys, does anybody want to talk and anybody else want to talk about their challenges? If not, I kind of have a joy, but like I want to give space for the challenges first.
I do have one more challenge that kind of came to me in these moments. I also have experienced amounts of being very forthcoming, getting to a point where I tell people pretty much first time out, hey, this is my name, this is what I do, I'm bisexual, yada, yada, yada. And then getting this intense sexual connection from them, like, okay, and they seem really into me and really about it. And then, things happen and I don't hear from them. So I'm like, okay, so since you have a preconceived notion about bisexual people or just the sexualization of Black men in the queer community, the gay community, you then saw me as an object to use, but not to, value, not to talk to, and not to kindle a relationship with. And that I think was my hardest thing once I realized my sexuality and I started sharing with other people in the community. Aside from all the invalidation of like, oh, bisexuality is a transition or you're just da-da-da, it was also just kind of becoming then sexualized by people off of a stereotype and used by them. And then being blamed for being, untrustworthy or promiscuous, all of the things. I'm like, well, you gave me that energy. I only told you who I was. But that was a bit of a struggle that just came to me too.
And I'll jump in too real quickly here. Being a male, it's interesting because I think that the bisexual community may be one, if not the only community out there that probably could stand to use a little bit more male representation, which is the opposite of everything else in the world today. But because I think that there's been a misconception that has been going on, for decades where, bisexuality is looked upon as a bridge between being closeted and being gay. It's getting better, but it's still out there. And it kind of piggybacks to what Stephanie was saying before, in which I will have primarily gay males kind of dismiss the female relationships I've had in the past. Well, that, as if somehow that was just, they were beards or they were a cover to hide, to hide who I was. And again, I think, I'm hoping that with the younger generation, that seems to be dissipating considerably. But it's still out there, and it is still definitely something that something got to fight through.
Yeah, and I think I'll just jump in after David real quick to say two things. And I might embarrass you, David, but you love me and that's okay. And I want to share with you that I invited David to the space, and literally David said, I don't want to take up space. I'm a white male enough. And I was like, well, we found the one, everybody. But it is true. We do need by men identified folks here, and so I want to thank you for being here also and sharing your perspective. You have to try to fight me. I had one that happened just yesterday. Can you believe it? In 2021, of course you can. And that is, there was a comic that I've known for a while, never said a off word to me, which is strange because in the world of comedy you just get that all the time, right? Like someone's always angling for something, and you get hit on in really weird, uncomfortable ways, which if you see most of these people perform isn't actually shocking at all. And so yesterday this comic reached out. We haven't chatted in a while, and was just checking in, and I was talking about the programming we've done with the city of WeHo. We've got Santa Monica lit up in the beautiful lanterns with the Buy Pride colors. We've got flags throughout the city. We have these amazing, conversations happening. So I was talking about that. And he literally responded by saying, this is amazing. Thanks for all you do. I owe you some news. A, no. Thank you on any day. That's not why we're here. And be like, what? You're going to thank me for community work by nudes? And I just realized, oh, he didn't think I was gay. He assumed, that he had a picture of me that he thought was something else. And so his response was, thanks for all you do. I'm going to send you news. And I was like, no, you're not.
I don't even know how to take that. I don't know. Let's flip it to the joys. Do you all mind if we flip it to the joys of the intersections that where they live? And I'll go first with this one. So I said that I was a mom, and I am, and I have so much hope for this new generation because I just feel like the younger generation of the queer community is so much more open and so much more just accepting. And I don't have to come out to my kid. Like my kid knows that I'm bi, and that is such like a revelation for me because everybody else, like my mom and my dad, like the whole family system is I feel so much shame, still. But with my kid, with my younger with the younger generation, it just is, and I love that, and I'm just like, yes. If we can create a world where people are free to love whoever they want to love, and it's just a thing. It's not like a big thing. It's not a big old coming out thing. It is. I love that, and that brings me joy to see that in the younger generation. Any joys? Can we talk about the joys, please? Bring me the yes ands, Nikki. Can I make you go first?
Yes, and
yes.
I would say so much of my joy, both as a queer person and as a non-binary person, I guess for me, there's always a conflict between like community LGBTQ and identity of orientation, right? And that there isn't always a clear overlap. So it's not that I make a blanket rule, I'll never date someone who identifies as straight, or as, as gay, I guess, but who gets hung up on like a cis representation of embodiment. And so a while ago, I kind of just low-key promised myself I'd only date bi and pan-identified people. Was just multiplicative, where gender was just a multiplicative concept, or a fluid concept. And I have found so much joy and being surprised by some sort of even like just conventional sort of baseline things in terms of like relationship building that weren't necessarily there for me as like a non-binary trans person before I came out and realized it, in like the straight and gay communities. And I guess for me, it's very personal because it's around relationships and like dating. But I find that there's I don't even know how to say it, and this is a rarity for me. I don't know how to put it into words, but a fullness of potential, I guess, and that I never felt pressured that I needed to explain anything. There was kind of just that unspoken, like, I get it, and not just I get it, but I love it, and we can explore this together, and I'm like, that's just something I took for granted that could be a thing at all. So now I think it's really special and maybe unique to us and our community, but I hope everybody is able to find some kind of spark like that in the personal relationships that they have. But that's definitely something no one told me when I came out, that was something to look forward to. And it's maybe my favorite part of the situation of being queer.
I don't know if you know the word in Tagalog. It's like gigil, which means it's like hee. It makes that it's so romantic and sexy and hot, Nikki. Like, I love it. Any more joys that we can share so that we can celebrate being in this community, and like what people who are watching, if they are struggling too with the challenges, that they can like have stuff to look forward to too.
Yeah. I'll go. I think mine is also relationship oriented at first. Relationships for me historically have been the place where I felt my sexuality and my identity was most invalidated, whether it be with men, whether it be with women, whether it be with non-binary people. It was always challenged. It was always kind of like we were talking about earlier. There was no right answer to it. I was either giving something that felt incorrect to who I was, or I was giving something that felt true and being told it was wrong. And I can say now I'm in a relationship where my partner will defend my bisexuality, to other people. And something just as simple as that, people be like, since we're both men, they'll be like, oh, you're a gay couple. He'd be like, we're not a gay couple. It's like, we could be a queer couple, but my boyfriend's not gay, so we're not a gay couple. And it seems small, like just thinking about it. But for me in those moments, I'm like, I have someone who sees me and knows me and also wants the world to see me, instead of the relationships where people wanted to change me or wanted me to hide or didn't want people to see certain parts of me. So that's the joy. And I think another one of the big joys for me in being a bisexual man is talking to other men, straight men specifically, and being able to communicate with them in a way that they kind of hear and understand, for all of their, shortcomings and flaws and in the things that straight men have to overcome in their own sphere. Being able to sit down with men and just talk to them about relationships in general, and to kind of break down some of the things that they've been taught. Because manhood, at a young age, boys, specifically young Black boys, are taught that the most important thing about your manhood and about your masculinity is to protect your manhood and your masculinity. So when you get past that and you start being able to challenge these things and to, embrace femininity, not just in yourself, but within the world, it really allows there to be honest conversation. A lot of male identity, sadly, is curation instead of genuine creation from who you are. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to men about this, and to especially and have just honest and open conversations. And I'll tell guys, I'm like, it's hard to be straight. Like, the definition of straight, I was like, that shit seems impossible to me. Like, it just seems very limited to one thing. Like, people, as we see with the next generation, queer identities are becoming more and more prevalent. Young kids are being more just proud and open about who they are and expressing it. And that's a beautiful thing to see.
I think you blew our minds away with the curation versus creation comment. I'm still recuperating from that. So if anybody want to take the joys, any more joys?
Oh, right.
Hi.
Poet.
Yes.
Poet. We heard that. Poet. I think similar thematically to what's been said, community is really the joy for me. Even just coming into this Zoom space and the number of folks here that I know from a variety of different points in my life in different ways. There's a sense of belonging. And I joke often at this point, I can like smell bi people. And so I know virtually no straight people. I know some people that were straight when I met them, but aren't now because I can smell you. And so there's a particular kind of belonging and being seen. I remember early on in being an Ambi member that I would say it's the ability to walk into a room and not have to talk about it because we all already know. And as Nikki said, there's like this joyful fluidity and space for exploration and all the ways that you want to embody your bi-ness, your queerness, to all the different ways that that shows up on any given day, to have the space to play and explore. I don't know that I do know. I don't feel that in any other community. And so there's an at-home feeling. And I always also joke that, we walk among you, we're everywhere. So even if you think your world is hella straight, it's not. I guarantee you it's not. So I can smell you. I think that's the message of this part of what I'm sharing. I'm coming for you. I can smell you. Even if you don't know, I'll love you into yourself. That's what I'm here for.
I love that. Anybody else with the joys? I love the joys. Can we please add on some more joys before we get into the microaggressions? Give me the joys.
I know I just went, but I just need to like, yes, and that again. Because I guess what came to my mind is just sort of the comfort with cognitive dissonance and sort of the Venn diagramminess of life is when that is not even just something that needs to be worked on as a challenge, but something that can be celebrated as a default part of the human experience, but specifically say to our community's experience. That to me too, and this is gonna sound shady. I don't mean it's shady. It's not a comparison thing. I'm just thankful. I'm thankful that in bi communities and queer communities, that kind of overlappy Venn diagrammy cognitive dissonance engagement, it's not that we're smarter or better or anything, but I find that the genuine interest and personal importance of that does make me, as Kai said, feel more safe, more seen. There's more to discover, there's more to learn. I feel there's less, although we are not without our biases in this community, I will own that. I find that the ability to converse about them and to call a thing what it is, there's a kind of shared empathy, a willingness to go there in a way that doesn't necessarily need to be, in a bad way, that I also really appreciate.
I'm gonna hop on that and kind of say, I just joined a very small writer's room, a queer writer's room. This is the first time that this has happened. And it was the first time that I felt like I didn't have to like do my hair or like look like this. I could just be and still be respected and still be valid. I didn't have to look or present a certain way. And that was just so freeing to me, just to be in that kind of space. And there's that joy there of like, who are we authentically at like the deepest core of who we are? And will that be seen and respected and loved and without, having to justify it or mask it all, so that there's like that joy too. Yeah. Somebody take it, or Jackie, if you want to take it.
Well, let's hear from Rachel, because listen, 4 a.m. If you want to share your 4 a.m. joy, I want to hear it.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I was just taking everything in. Like the information has just been so it's giving me joy to hear all of these things. Unfortunately, well, not I wouldn't say unfortunately. I think the things that bring me joy is actually just being queer. Like I always say, I wish heterosexuality on no one. So I'm super happy to be a queer person. I'm super happy to be part of this creative and beautiful group of people. I think the other day I had my first meeting of people who are bisexual and Black or of color. So for me, that was an extremely enriching moment because I didn't have to choose any part of my identity to bring forward. From what I'm hearing, things are a lot better in the US. Over here in Europe, and especially I'm talking about mainland Europe because the UK is a different ball of fish altogether. On mainland Europe, bi communities are heavily white communities. And so I'm still having to explain myself when I'm in those communities. I'm still having to explain to a number of people, yes, you know, Black bisexual people actually exist, or bisexual people of color, they actually do exist. And sometimes it's met with a lot of tension. It's met with a lot of just with a lot of animosities sometimes, because there's no understanding. I think BICON in the UK, that actually the virtual BICON that they just had, they actually enforced some anti-racism courses before actually going through with the BICON. So I thought that was extremely positive. That was just one step in the right direction that we need to go. And that's something that we can all learn from. And it's also something that I've been very loud about. I've been basically telling everyone that we need to do something, that we need to talk more about the biases, about the fact that, you know, racism, unfortunately, it is present even within our communities. It doesn't matter how much we hope and pray, you know, or that we see ourselves as extremely open to these things. Let's just be realistic, because we need to have a conversation and we need to actually move forwards. In Europe, there's so many different communities that are coming together. Even as a Black person, you know, you'll have Black people who are first or second generation migrants, or you'll have Black people that have been here, you know, for an extremely long time. You've got different types of Blackness that are also intersecting with themselves. You also have different types of communities of color. You also have people coming from, and even in those communities themselves, they have a lot of work to do with deconstructing racism, with deconstructing transphobia, with deconstructing biracia and biphobia in and of itself. So yeah, my joy is hearing that things are going well, that things are moving forward, but I'm also constantly having to remind myself that the realities here, especially in the EU or also in the UK, are a bit different. And also the British way of tackling things is just like ignoring them, you know, pushing them under the rug, and then drinking a cup of tea at 4 o'clock and thinking that everything's going to be okay. It's not. It's really not going to be okay. And the EU has also this way of going about things, of ignoring things. So my joy is basically, you know, just seeing and learning from other bi communities around the world and how they're dealing with things, and also listening to the different types of terminology that are coming up. There are people that want to use bisexual. There are people that want to use bi plus. There are people that are bisexual but don't use the word bisexual. Even in Europe, there's a lot of people, and also just giving people the option to do so. You know, it doesn't make you any less bisexual. It doesn't make you any less queer if you don't want to use queer, if you should use queer. We're also understanding that a lot of our histories and our views are very colonial when we're looking at things. So therefore, we also have to understand that with the type of terminology that we're also putting forward, and making sure that people, you know, they can utilize all the tools to their advantage, and just accepting that, you know, sometimes people don't want to be defined as, you know, as bisexual, and they're free to do so. So that's also part of my job, but also community. Like, community is everything. Community is where everything starts and happens to me. So if it's not about community, then I don't really care for it. That's basically it. Yeah. I'll pass it on to somebody else. I think I've talked enough now.
Does anybody want to jump in and respond to that? I know just from the US perspective, you know, Is it better here? Does it feel better here? Is that your experience, Ryan?
Well, I'll speak also to racism specifically. I mean, I came out almost 3 years ago now. I guess 2.5 years ago. And when I encountered racism within the queer community, I was disheartened. I was just like, okay, well, damn, here too, like, okay, I can't get away from this. And this is also the first interracial relationship I've been in my life. And just seeing how nasty people can get really got to me for a second. And then I took a deep breath, refreshed social media, because at that point I was just like obsessed with it. And I saw people, white people, Black people, people of all colors, all races, all ethnicities, people of all sexualities, orientations, commenting back and sending love and telling the people that were sending nasty things, get out of here. Like, we're not doing that. And I think, especially at the height of Black Lives Matter movement, I'm not going to say that it's better here. I know that it's far from where it needs to be here, but I will say that people are fed up here. I will say that people are using their voice and using their power. And I know that people are willing to fight for change and sweeping things under the rug. I think that's what we've done here for a long time. And I think that's kind of what culminated the height of Black Lives Matter movement, when we saw so many people being murdered and killed and beaten by the system that, if we're being honest, was never put here to protect us. It was put here to enslave us and to keep us captive and demure and beaten and broken and separated. And it's continued to do that, for years now. And I think people are starting to realize that that's not going to work. That's not going to work because, we, other than being Black and other than being bisexual and other than being all these other identities that make us, that we love, at the baseline, we are human and we deserve to be happy and to be equal and to be embraced and to live our life without the fear of being called any slur or our lives being threatened for who we love or how we look or our profession or anything. So I'm not going to say it's better here, but I will say this is, I think, as a Black man and as a bisexual man, I think now I'm the most hopeful of what the future will be now than I have in a long time.
Kai, please just pop in. You don't have to raise your hand. Just pop in.
I was also raising my hand because I've seen Stephanie lean in like 4 times to unmute, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm leaving space for the other wonderful people that are here too. I just wanted to touch on the point about, is it better here? So one arm of my octopus that is my creative practice is doing embodied anti-racism training, and my business partner and I work in the US quite a bit, but also in Europe. And one of the things that's been shared repeatedly by folks that we work with in Europe and also most recently the UK is that it seems like the difference in the States is that we're getting real loud about things in a way that many European countries are still going, oh no, that's not an issue here because, well, we don't have the same history of slavery or immigration or this and that, as if colonialism is not, and anyway, we know what we're talking about over there, but that there's a difference in people's willingness to admit the thing. Not that there aren't plenty of folks in the US that still want to pretend that none of these things are real because they don't feel them, but that at least the language and to a certain extent the volatility is hopeful here. Because you really can't go far without bumping into someone who's going to push back on your beliefs. And I think that I'm excited to be here for that. And at the same time, This is just a situation of the grass is always greener. Sometimes the idea of being in a place where people think that these things don't exist sounds somehow alluring because it's not where I live. Like maybe it won't be so much of how I live and what I teach and what I do all day, every day. People don't believe that it's real. I'd probably lose my mind. But so I don't think I'd say it's better. I'd say it's different, and there are pros and cons to both realities. Yeah.
Stephanie.
Oh no, you caught me. Actually, mine wasn't anything about what Rachel or Ryan or Kai were talking about. Mine was about joys. Back to the joys. Mine has been, it's nothing personal. It's actually been finding safe spaces, and now my ability to create those safe spaces for our community. That's what's brought me a lot of joy and just empowerment. Because I remember starting out trying to figure out my sexuality, and where do you go? Like, who do you talk to? I talk to your therapist. Did they send you somewhere else? So it was just, I stumbled on, our LGBTQ center here in Hollywood. They had a group called Biosphere, and I found it one day online, and I was like, wait, I think these are my people, and I was really excited. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go and so nervous. And then I enter this space and everyone's bi, and I was like, wait, we do exist. This is a thing, and I was so excited and so nervous. And then, that's also where I learned about bi, and I joined the community and started going to events. We did things like have tea, just a small group of people having tea or watching a movie, and just knowing you're with community and these people understand. And if you have questions or you want to talk about something, you're in a good, safe space to do it. And then now, a couple of years later, when I found that, I'm in a good place to create and build these safe spaces for people as well, that's really brought me joy. I didn't think I would have the energy to, plan an event and host an event, but I have found that I have it, and it brings me such joy to bring people together and to let them know, hey, like, this is a safe space, for you to be yourself, to talk about the things you need to talk to, or just hang out and like watch a movie or do something. So that's been my joy these past couple of years.
I love it. Can I share? We have time for me to share a quick joy.
Yes, please.
It's based on
Yes.
this. So,
you should Bi Pride.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Bi Pride doing that brought us a lot of joy. But I think this is it, right? So like we're sitting around having these conversations, and the more I get into these like bureaucratic spaces, and the more of that kind of stuff that I'm doing on this whatever this journey is, using my privilege to give space and a voice, and not just, I believe that you do it with your time and your dime, right? Because if you're not paying people, if you're not giving space for people, if you're not truly honoring people, then you're just, it's a hashtag, and just go to brunch, just stop. But coming into these spaces, and a lot of times you have this thing, and it's like, well, we're talking about bi. No, Blackness is bi. Queerness is, right? We have this, and we don't always make this space to talk. And it's like, this is the community. This is what our community looks like. So coming into and having these conversations that are just rich and delicious, and people are talking about it, and all of the layers to the cake. For me, that's it. Because I love to just show people how hard it's not to be intentional and actually action the things that you say that you want to do, and create space for it. And I don't ever want to have to choose my queerness. And I'm not ever going to choose my queerness over anti-racism, because that's my job as a white person. And it happens all the time. My partner and I were in a bar not too long ago. It's a queer bar, and they were showing blackface on a screen. And I went up and had what started as a very reasonable, I thought, conversation that went on, we'll just say, for a bit. But the thing is, that's not fun, right? This work isn't fun. This work, it's not a joy to have to explain to a gay man that I would literally die to defend him, but I cannot stand here and watch this, right? So like, I don't know how to have to do that and give one up, but of course I'll never put a foot in that bar again, and I'm going to share the name privately, but I've already posted about it and done the whole thing. But not having to choose, and not taking the easy road out, I think, for just the other white queer folks. Don't take the easy road out. I know they've got a good happy hour. I get it. I know they've got a damn fine karaoke. I've twirled there many a nights. It's my neighborhood bar. Doesn't matter. If you don't stand for these things when the time is called for you to do that, and when no one's looking, and when you just have the option of which place to go or which person to give your dollar to or hire for that job, then you're just not doing it. And I think that's crap. So doing it gives me joy. I'll turn it back into a joy.
I'm going to jump in here real quick on piggybacking on what Jackie said. What a lot of people have said tonight about community. The joy that I get, I've been involved in the bi community here in Los Angeles for the better part of 2 decades. And to see what it exists here now that wasn't here 15 years ago is just absolutely just fills my heart. And in most of the bi spaces that I've been to, and the number of people on this panel can probably attest to that through Ambi or just whatever bi spaces there are, it so often looks very much like what we have now. Look what we're doing tonight. This is a bi space. Look at all the people. Look at all the different backgrounds, the colors, the genders, the whole spectrum of it all coming together and talking. And when I go to a bi event, I see people of all the various colors, all the various backgrounds, all the various genders, all the various ages coming together, hanging out in joy. I mean, it doesn't feel like work. We're just there and existing and talking to each other, one on a human level, one-on-one. And my hope is that, I mean, if that's the kind of thing that can be extrapolated out to the broader world, that's the most basic building block that there is to start solving a lot of the crap that's out there. And I'm very, very proud to be part of a community where that is where that's being done. It's not just being talked about, but it's actually just being lived like that on an everyday basis.
Thank you, David. And thank you for being here and taking up space too. You know, like, I feel like, you know, we have a couple of minutes to kind of end the conversation, but if anybody wants to pop in with like a last word to kind of like bring us home, that would be amazing before we kind of tootle off for the night. And this has been an awesome conversation. I am very touched and very honored to be here with all of you. Last words, Rachel, do you want to go first since you're across the pond?
Oh my goodness. The pressure. Okay. Any
no pressure,
words?
fun.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to let people know out there that we're here, that you just need to find your community. Definitely look for bi people. They are everywhere. I think, as someone else said, we can smell you more or less. I think we can guess more or less who is out there and which person is part of the community. And when you feel ready, please do come up to us. Do just talk to us. Just do reach out. I think it was very good that David actually pointed out that we're all working on a very human level. So we're very approachable, that you can also, but also just, I feel like there's that we're so genuine in everything that we're doing, and everything's done with such a meaningfulness that, it's important to keep this going, and also to make sure that other bi people and the future bi people that want to, are struggling with actually maybe coming out, or struggling with finding that identity, that they can always come up to us, and they can also just find a medium of communication. It can happen today, it can happen tomorrow, it can happen in a couple of years, but just know that we're here, that we also want to celebrate you, that we're also here for you, and of course you're always welcome to reach out, and we see you, we can smell you, we can hear you, and we already want to love to celebrate everything that you are. So don't be afraid to take that leap, and don't be afraid to talk to us. So yeah, that's basically it.
I love
it's
it.
Like I'm talking to my, actually, I'm always talking to, the younger self. I'm always talking to myself when I was a lot younger. I did my first coming out as a lesbian, and then I was like, oh no, that maybe not it may be something else, and when I did my second coming out, it was basically, I lost all the lesbian friends. Of course, they were all like, you're a traitor, you've discarded all of us. I'm like, no, I just there's something else. So yeah, I know what it feels like to be rejected. Please don't be afraid of that. You know, it's things that do happen, but do know that there's always a community out there that's willing to support you, that's willing to listen. And I think that's something that we need to push a little bit more, is that some people just want to be listened to. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything or know all of the lexicon or all of the vocabulary. You just need to listen to that person, just hear them out, because more often than not, they haven't been listened to or they haven't been heard. And I think that is the most important thing driving us forwards. Just these two, they meet and we can keep them together. Just listen to people, just basically make sure that they're heard and give them their time, and also give them the energy in order to find the words in order to express themselves. So I think, moving forwards, a lot more empathy, a lot more understanding, and a lot more love in general. So I'm sorry, I feel like I sound like
I feel like that is like such the beautiful sentiment to end on. We were at time, and I just want to thank all the panelists for being here. City of West Hollywood, for the Ambi, for Jackie, for Kai, Rachel, for Nikki, for anybody that missed, Brian, and thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you so much. Thank you, people, for being here and listening. I have so much love for everybody on this panel. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, audience, for being here. And if anybody wants to say the last words before they end this meeting, jump in.
I think if we could just hear from Ryan, I'd love to hear from you before we go. I think we have another just a minute or so. That's okay. Ryan, you want to say some last words?
Of course. I want everyone to know that they are valid. You are seen. You are loved. You're not confused. You're not wrong. You're not weird unless you want to be, because I'm weird. And, like everyone's saying, it's community and you have one. The journey's not always linear. Things don't always work out according to plan. Things aren't perfect. 10 years ago, I thought I was straight. I'm not. It's perfectly fine. Take your time, figure out who you are, and love who you are. That's where the true joy is. You won't find love in what you do. You won't find love in another person. You won't find love anywhere else until you find it within yourself first. That is the key. And, you are who you are, and you deserve that love. You deserve that happiness. And we're here to celebrate you whenever you're ready. So everyone, I love you all. Thank you, everyone, for being here and having me. It's been awesome. And I love this. I want to do this weekly.
Great. I'll email your team tomorrow. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you. Kai?
I was just going to say, trademark, we can smell you. T-shirts forthcoming.
Clearly. No notes. Nikki, thank you so much, Kai. Nikki?
Yes, and y'all. Yes, and.
Yes, love. Thank you. Stephanie, want to say anything before we boogie?
I'm still laughing about that. I can smell you. I'm sorry.
Those shirts are happening.
For being here at this event. It was a pleasure being on this panel with all of these amazing people. Gio, thank you for hosting. Like Ryan said, I hope we can do this again. Maybe next year, but not next week.
Yes. Thank you. David?
Thank you to all. You are such a bunch of beautiful people, and it just reminds you what a beautiful community this is. And this has been an honor and a privilege for me. So thank you.
Amazing. And I'll just say thank you to everybody. Thank you to the City of West Hollywood. Thank you to Hernan and Mariana, who are here and helped put this together and are managing the Zoom for us, and so much more. It took a lot for us to get here. So all the council members who unanimously passed all of the efforts to support bi visibility, including bi flags being flown all week in the City of West Hollywood, all of the street lanterns on Santa Monica being blown in the bi pride colors. So exciting. So if you haven't seen it, get out tonight, tomorrow, and take a look. I've been standing at Rocco's just for the lights. And so really all of the work that they've helped us to do. They've done the proclamation celebrating Bi Visibility Day, and just so much more. So we've been growing in this relationship. We've been growing our visibility, and just thank you to everybody who's been a part of it that isn't on here tonight. And the only last thing I'll say is love yourselves, but love each other, stand up for each other, even when it's uncomfortable, and be who your queer sibling needs. Be the person, whether it's a hug, a kind word, or just saying what the hell needs to be said in that moment. So that's all. Love everybody, and love these buys.
Love you, Jackie. You're a badass, and I love you so much.
And everybody, thank you.
Bye. Bum.